Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Made the Ultimate Sacrifice, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto had now successfully completed 2 weeks of training without much difficulty. His clones had mastered chakra control to the extent that he was now capable of reaching the top of the tremendous waterfall. The ones who were trying to perform one-handed seals had done as much possible with the current techniques that he knew, so he decided that he would let all 1,000 of his shadow clones concentrate solely on learning manipulation of the elements, as the task was proving to be a lot more complicated than he formerly thought it would be. He had already mastered the wind element as it was his affinity, consequently his clones were rapidly progressing in learning the futon techniques. Manipulation of the earth element was proving to be the easiest of the remaining 4 elements, and he could perform some of the lower level techniques. His manipulation of the water element was coming along at a steady pace, having already mastered the basic techniques required. However, the 2 elements proving to be the most difficult were fire and lightning. His development with the 2 particular elements was very slow, and he was finding it extremely hard to apply the basics of manipulation to them. His kenjutsu training was extremely successful, especially after the addition of Sasuke as his training partner. The Uchiha pushed Naruto to his limits, making him work twice as hard to keep up with him since he was being affected by the gravity seal. Although becoming more accustomed to the pull on his body, there was still a long way to go before he would be able to fully utilize his skills whilst under the affect of the seal. However, having the Sharingan user as his partner was also quite dangerous, as he was becoming suspicious of why Naruto had to try so hard yet still failed to put up much of a threat, as the Kyuubi vessel had not told him about his forbidden training method. Genma had taught him well on how to use swords in combat, showing him the ideal distances and motions to deal the most devastating affect. The Junin was also going to teach him how to perform the shadow dance techniques once he was far enough in his skills. Having deactivated his seal and going through his customary relaxation, he was currently writing up the required seal in order to perform the Yondaim's most treasured jutsu. He had gone to the weapons shop earlier on and received the finished kunais, which looked perfect and showed the quality of craftsmanship. However, before moving on to using the kunai to perform the technique, he would have to understand the mechanics of the seal used. The seal was a vital factor in the success of the technique, as it summoned its user. A blank scroll was in front of Naruto as he delicately drew the intricate seal pattern, making sure not to make any mistakes. A high risk was involved, as the technique granted the user control over space and time through the use of summoning, so he could instantly appear wherever the seal was placed. However, he had to be careful in making sure that he didn't mess up whilst drawing, as the consequences would be fatal. He finished the seal before imprinting his insignia on it with his B. Since he wasn't meant to be training on the days he had to rest, Naruto decided he would prepare the seals for when he would start learning the Hiraishin no Jutsu. He continued drawing the seals as the morning was slowly coming to an end. Finally finishing, he gathered his scrolls, deciding to drop them off home before going to his favorite ramen stand. XXXXXXXXXX. That's enough for now. The Hokage addressed her student with a raised hand. We should get some rest before continuing. Sakura, panting from her strict training regimen, quickly nodded. Hi, Tsunade Shisu. The medic nins reached for their water, replenishing themselves with much needed refreshment. The god, I'm feeling a little tired, but not as much, as the younger medic made her way over to nearby bench before sitting down. Sakura, following her teacher, sat next to her before slowly drifting to her thoughts. She trained with the Hokage, improving her combat and medical skills whenever her team didn't go on missions. As of late, the atmosphere whilst on missions was awkward, as Kakashi had begun to arrive later than usual and wasn't as focused on the objective at hand. She could see that he was hiding something and would often read his orange book a lot more than he would regularly. Apart from training and completing her missions with her team, her mind focused on the hyperactive ninja, especially after the dance at the party. She had enjoyed the touch of his skin and the warm feeling whilst in his arms. Her heart leapt every time she thought about their intimate dance, now understanding why Ino kept teasing her about her feelings. She hadn't seen the blonde since the dance and was herself dreading meeting him again, as she was unsure of what to say. The strength of feelings she was feeling were far beyond simple attraction, they were a lot deeper and she was confused as to what to make of them. Soon aware of the uncomfortable presence of her apprentice voiced her question, "Is something the matter?" Sakura sighed before responding, "I'm not sure." Sunad raised an eyebrow at the unusual answer, "I'll take that as a yes." The older woman of the two averted her gaze from the kunoichi, opting to stare at the demolished training grounds. Sunad Shisu, she paused as her mentor turned to look at her, "Does a person know when they're in love?" Her question came as an initial surprise to Sunad, but she understood the complexity of feelings she must be experiencing. She had fallen for the hyperactive ninja without even realizing it, and she was coming to terms with her feelings after the dance. However, since it was so unexpected, she didn't know what to do. The gambling Hokage chose her words carefully, as she was now one of 3 people who knew about Naruto's condition and didn't believe it was her place to tell the pink-haired medic. A person never knows when they fall in love. She remembered her lover, it's a feeling that builds up over time. A smile was across her face before she continued, "The only way to understand your feelings is to confront them." Sakura stared into the hard ground with her emerald eyes absorbing her teacher's words. "What if you are afraid?" Sunad laughed at her apprentice, causing the kunoichi to look up in confusion. "You really like him, don't you?" Sakura, understanding her accusation, reddened a bit before muttering her answer, "Yeah." The Godime adopted a more serious tone of voice before continuing. She knew that Sakura would have to figure out her feelings, as Naruto didn't have much time. The Hokage understood that allowing the 2 shinobi to become close now would result in an even deepened feeling of sadness when the time for departure came, so she chose her words carefully when she began to address her apprentice. "The life of a shinobi is perilous, make use of the time that you have." Her answer applied to all ninja, however she was specifically talking about Naruto's upcoming death, not that the pink-haired medic knew. Sakura nodded at the older woman, the clearness of her decision reflected in her bright green eyes. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto finished his 8th bowl of ramen, having finally satisfied his hunger to its fullest degree. He observed Chuki and his daughter Ayami work before placing his money on the counter and leaving. It was now in the middle of the afternoon and he didn't have much left to do. Deciding that letting his muscles rest would be the best course of action, he headed in the direction of his home. He was satisfied with the rate at which his training was progressing, fully confident that he would be capable of defeating the Akatsuki soon. He was broken from his thoughts as he heard someone walking up behind him. Naruto. The familiar voice sent a twinge to his heart, both of happiness and sadness. He turned to face the apprentice of the Hokage. He adopted his mask rather quickly, attempting to hide the confusion of feelings brewing within him. "Sakura-chan." The kunoichi nodded whilst falling in pace with him. The two shared an awkward silence, well aware of their last encounter. Naruto, trying not to think too much, quickly started a conversation. "So how are the missions lately?" Sakura continued walking, her eyes directed in front of her. "Simple, we're not allowed to leave the village, so most of them are lending a hand with handing out assignments or filling in at the academy. Lately though, we've been asked to help with the preparations of the Chunin exams, since they're going to be starting in another 2 weeks. Naruto laughed. Sasuke's probably not happy with such missions. As for Kakashi-sensei, well, he probably doesn't care. Sakura's mood changed upon the mention of their sensei, something Naruto picked up on. Kakashi-sensei has been weird lately. Naruto's curiosity was piqued with her intriguing words. He seems distracted, ever since the party. The Leaf Nin began to contemplate what could have caused a change in behavior for their usually undeterred sensei. He was interrupted by Sakura. Naruto, he turned to look at the older girl whose hair was moving slightly from the soft blow of the wind. Sakura hesitated for a moment, not sure how to ask him, would you like to get together sometime? Naruto's expression displayed his confusion. "Nani? We just had a party." Sakura became irritated of his obliviousness, as it was hard enough for her to ask in the first place. "Barker. I meant just the 2 of us." She began blushing, realizing what she had just shouted at him. Naruto was shocked beyond comprehension. He didn't think the kunoichi would ever willingly ask to go out with him. They had recently gone to eat together on a couple of occasions, however it was always him who asked, and even then it was just an outing of friends. The blonde wasn't sure of what to do. He didn't want to get too close to the girl at this time, knowing it wasn't the brightest idea since he had been deliberately trying to avoid being with his friends as much as possible without giving him a reason for suspicion. Knowing of Sakura's high intelligence, he was sure that she would pick on something being wrong if he refused. Yeah, sure. Looking towards the kunoichi, he could see the lightest tint of red grace her soft cheeks. Sakura, happy with his answer, quickly answered, "Pick me up in 2 days at 7. She gave him a smile before parting ways in the direction of her house. Naruto, looking at her leave, knew he would probably come to regret his answer. A roar of thunder was heard from the sky above as darkened clouds began to gather, preparing for a downpour. Not paying attention to the changing weather, his mind focused on his Junin sensei. The last time he had seen him was when they were talking at the balcony. Trying to understand the reason for Kakashi's strange behavior, his eyes widened in realization, remembering the Godime as the last person to have talked to him on the day of the party. Did she? Forsaking his original plan of returning home, he took off to search for the masked pervert, ignoring the droplets of rain which began to soak his golden hair. XXXXXXXXXX. Zetsu threw the beaten form of the Jinchuriki across the hard surface of the floor. His body was relatively unharmed, however he had sustained a few bruises at the hands of the container of the shichibi. Observing the bee figure in front of him, he showed no remorse for his actions. He had left the Jinchuriki alive, but just enough so that the extraction process would be successful. The battle had gone relatively easy for the green-haired Akatsuki member until his target began to harness the power of his Bayu. Underestimating his opponent's abilities, even if it was for a mere couple of seconds, had resulted in him being caught in one of his techniques. Luckily, the technique did not carry the full force of the Bayu, so it didn't break his defense. The battleground for their encounter was now in ruins. The ground had been ripped open, leaving several craters scattered, and the nearby forest had also been extinguished. The shichibi granted its container control over the element of earth, giving him an advantage in using the land for his techniques. However, since Zetsu was adept at using his surroundings for cover and his own attacks, he comfortably walked away with the victory. The Akatsuki member picked the Jinchuriki up via his hair, preparing to return to the base for the extraction. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto had looked in numerous places over Konoha where his Junin sensei could have been. Having not found him anywhere, he traveled to the only other location he could think of, Team 7's former training ground. The rain continued to pour as his clothes had now been soaked entirely, leaving a cold feeling running through his body. Surely enough, he could see Kakashi standing next to the memorial stone, staring intently at the names carved on its surface. Walking forwards, he reached the log to which he had been tied to when Kakashi had given him the bell test. The Junin was standing drenched, his hair flattened from the rain and now partially covering his face. The blonde looked at his sensei, having never seen him like this before. He spoke with a calm, clear voice, "You know, huh?" He awaited a response from the older ninja, however it didn't come, knowing his silence meant a yes. He continued staring at his sensei, who had his back turned due to facing the memorial stone. The weather had not relinquished its brutality in throwing the cold droplets of water from the black clouds above. Naruto sighed, knowing that he should have told the Junin about his condition, as he felt a wave of guilt pass through him. Kakashi spoke in soft, monotonous voice. "The day I became a Junin," the masked shinobi paused as his student looked towards him, "I lead my first mission as a leader of a team." Naruto listened attentively to his words. "I didn't understand what it meant to have friends." His sorrow-filled eye continued, staring at the names carved on the monument. "I never thought much of my teammates, and prioritized the mission above everything else." Naruto listened carefully, noticing the sadness in his teacher's words. He had never heard his sensei talk about his past and never knew anything about it himself. "One of my teammates was captured," the Junin sighed, feeling angry with his older self. "I was prepared to abandon her, but I was stopped by the one person I looked down upon as a weak shinobi. Whoever breaks the rules is trash, but whoever abandons their friends is worse than trash." Naruto listened to Kakashi's words. That had been the first thing he had learned from the Junin and fully took to his heart. The ex-Anbu continued, "Those words that he said to me have stayed with me since. We managed to get our other teammate back, but I lost my eye in the process." Kakashi's vision blurred as he let a tear escape his drooped eye, quickly mixing with the wetness of his mask. "But before we could get to safety, we were attacked a final time. He saved my life, at the cost of his own." The tears continued rolling from his one exposed eye. His dying gift to me was his Sharingan. Naruto's eyes widened as he finally understood where Kakashi had received his Sharingan, but he was quickly filled with sorrow upon hearing of the white-haired Junin's past. That day I finally understood what it meant to have a friend. After everything I had said to him, he gave his life for me. I lost everything precious to me. A few minutes of silence passed as the two ninjas stood. The sky roared as the sound of thunder impacted, sending a chilling feeling of remorse through Naruto's spine. Kakashi broke the silence. The day I finally took a genin team, I finally thought that I would be able to make up for my past mistakes by raising shinobis who understood the importance of friendship. A smile was across Kakashi's face as he remembered the bell test. I finally found people that were important to me again, he sighed before turning to face the genin. His voice began to break. I'm sorry I have failed you. If I could have helped you, this wouldn't have happened. Naruto, whose eyes had began to water only being hidden by the rain, walked forwards until he was standing next to his sensei. You didn't fail me, Kakashi-sensei. He looked at the older ninja with a smile. You never have. The Jinchuriki stared at the memorial stone. Every ninja experiences sorrow. He remembered the heartbreaking expression of Haku. Every ninja has a past that they want to forget. Sasuke's visage flashed through his mind. And everyone makes mistakes. Kakashi listened to his student convey wisdom he would have never thought he had. The past may define who we were, but it is the present which shapes who we will become. The rain calmed as the QB container continued. When I don't want you to stay like this. Kakashi looked at his student with a mixture of surprise and grief. Naruto's eyes showed his resolve. Death is a part of life. You don't want to fail me. Kakashi looked at his student with curiosity. Then instead of living in the past, live for the future. Turning towards Kakashi, he had a genuine smile across his countenance. Kakashi looked into the eyes of the younger ninja, who even after everything that had occurred still held his determination and refused to give in to misery. A smile graced his face. Finally, for the first time in 3 days, a sense of peace entered his heart. The sun had set, leaving the dark sky. Through the relatively quiet streets, Naruto walked towards his destination in order to pick up Sakura for the date. He was tired from a hard day of training but still had enough energy remaining. His mind was in haywire with conflicting thoughts. He wanted to enjoy this time as he knew that he wouldn't get such chances often. However, he also knew that he couldn't let this outing get out of control, so had to make sure that nothing happened. He was clothed in dark red trousers with a tight-fitting long-sleeved black top. He wasn't wearing a jacket as it was a warm atmosphere. Preoccupied with his thoughts, he had arrived at Sakura's house quickly. Swallowing a lump in his throat and giving out a sigh, he knocked on the door. Waiting for a few minutes, he could hear someone approaching the door from the other side before opening it. Trying his hardest to stop his eyes falling out of their sockets, he failed to recognize his hanging mouth. Sakura stood in front of him, attired in an extravagant dark blue kimono with patterns of light pink cherry blossoms. His attention was drawn to the sparkling earrings she was wearing. He had never seen her wear them before, as such accessories were a distraction and a hazard for kunoikas. Sakura had a knowing smile across her face. That must mean I look really good. The Jinchuriki coughed, realizing his momentary stupor. Hey, yeah you do. Sakura couldn't help but rage with happiness inside. Hell yeah. Quickly coming out of her thoughts, she addressed the shinobi in front of her. So, where would you like to go first? Naruto's stomach rumbled. He hadn't eaten during the day, preserving his humongous AP for the evening. How about we eat? The medic nin stepped outside, closing the door behind her. The two began to walk, embarking on the date. Sakura's thoughts were concentrated solely on her feelings for the leaf nin next to her. They continued walking, leaving the residential district and arriving in the more lit-up area of Konoha. Naruto stared at the dazzling display of lights, not noticing the running flashes of green approaching him and Sakura. Yosh! These two young shinobi are truly enjoying the springtime of youth. Guy finished his loud speech with a thumbs up and a blinding smile. The eccentric volume startled Naruto, who wasn't prepared for such an outburst. His attention was quickly directed towards the energetic blue beast of Konoha's student, who was standing with fire burning in his eyes. Naruto-kun, I, the beautiful green beast of Konoha, challenge you for Sakura-chan's heart. Sakura's eyes widened as Naruto's sweat dropped. Nani? Sakura laughed nervously, slowly inching closer to the blonde. Lee continued in a determined tone, I have vowed to win SA. The green spandex-clad youth was stopped from finishing as a hand clasped itself around his mouth. 10-10 stood behind Lee with a firm grasp across his animated mouth. Neji slowly walked up behind his teammates, obviously embarrassed by the two taijutsu specialists' actions. Good to see you, Naruto, Sakura-san. Naruto and Sakura nodded, acknowledging his greeting. 10-10 finally relinquished her hold on Lee. Looking towards the young couple, she bowed before speaking. Sorry about Lee. Naruto scratched the back of his head. It's alright, I think. The unfathomable guy looked in the direction of Naruto. Yosh. You are finally embracing the blazing yet kind fire of your youth. Naruto had a dumbfounded expression, not fully comprehending the meaning of his words. His thoughts corresponded with Sakura, who was even more perplexed. Shanaro. What the hell does that even mean? Lee had tears brimming in his eyes as Guy exclaimed his passionate words. Guy-sensei, there is none more youthful than you. Maito Guy turned towards the younger taijutsu specialist and gave him his trademark smile. Of course, my youthful student. Now come, we must continue with our energetic laps around the wondrous beauty that is Konoha. Naruto and Sakura stared as the green spandex-wearing males ran down the street, not entirely sure of what had transpired in front of them. Neji followed slowly with an annoyed look. Well, I should leave you to your, anyways, 10-10 laughed before waving and following her teammates. Naruto inwardly smiled at his friend's antics. He was going to miss all this when the time came. He led Sakura to a high-class restaurant, knowing that going to eat at a ramen stand wasn't the greatest of ideas, especially since she had spent time preparing herself. Walking into the reasonably large building, they came upon one of the employees. Naruto addressed the tuxedo-wearing gentleman. We'd like a table for two. The short man recognized Sakura, who was the apprentice of the Hokage. Clearing his throat, he quickly replied, of course. Right this way, young sir, madam. Giving the two shinobi a courteous bow, he took them to their table before handing them menus. Sakura glanced at Naruto, who was intently focused on his menu and the list of food, no doubt trying to find his favorite dish of ramen. She was glad that he had taken her to a fine restaurant, which meant he had thought about the date. She gave a small chuckle as she realized the genin would be complaining about the state of his, Gama-chan, after a few days because of the amount of money he would be paying on the date. She picked up her menu to begin browsing but saw Naruto staring at her awkwardly. What? Do I look that nice? A smile appeared across her face as she spoke. Naruto shook his head, receiving a raised eyebrow from Sakura. No, it's not that, it's... Sakura seethed inside at what he had said, interrupting him from finishing. Barker. What's that supposed to mean? Naruto began to sweat, noticing the unfortunate misuse of his words. Gomen, Sakura-chan. I didn't mean it like that. The pink-haired medic paid no attention to his rambling, instead scouring through her menu. The blonde, acknowledging his failing attempts at reconciliation, sighed before resuming looking through his own menu. The minutes passed by in silence as they finally ordered their food. Sakura ordered kaiseki, a traditional delicacy made with the rarest variety of ingredients. The Jinchuriki ordered his usual miso ramen, awaiting his meal with eagerness. Looking back at the beauty in front of him, he decided to try and lighten up the discomfited atmosphere. So, Sakura-chan, how was your day? Sakura, slightly happy with his attempts for trying to make for his mistake, responded, but made sure she wasn't too reactive so he didn't think that he was off the hook already. Fine. She could visibly see her one-word answer to Naruto had the desired effect. Their meal arrived and the two ate in silence for the majority of the duration, with Naruto making his unique jokes to try and brighten Sakura's mood. His attempts ultimately failed in his eyes, whereas the pink-haired kunoichi was enjoying his desperate frame of mind at trying to make her laugh, feeling he was cute when in such a situation. Finishing their meal, Naruto left the payment before following Sakura outside. Sakura-chan, I really didn't mean it. You look great. Seriously, I haven't seen anyone looking better. Naruto walked behind Sakura, who was a few feet ahead of him. Sakura stopped as she blushed from the Leafnin's comment, only hidden due to the direction she was facing. Regaining her composure, she turned to face him. Well, how are you going to make up for it? Naruto began thinking with his hand on his chin as the minutes flew by. Sakura became irritated at the lengthy process. Shanaro. Does it really take you that long? A light bulb lit up in Naruto's mind as he thought of a brilliant idea. Rushing towards Sakura, startling her a little, He grabbed her hand and ran towards their destination. A warm feeling pulsed through Sakura at the unanticipated contact. She enjoyed the familiar feeling and continued following the energetic blonde. Arriving in front of the movie theater, Naruto felt a wave of fear rush through him as he saw the poster for the latest Ica Paradise movie. He turned towards Sakura, who was cracking her knuckles and had a menacing look in her eyes. "This is your idea." Naruto began to slowly back away from the volatile kunoichi. "Wait, I thought the latest movie Princess Kyuki made was being shown." He began to worry, noticing the lack of effect from his words. "What's going on here?" Kakashi looked at his students with a keen eye. Observing their attire and the situation of them being together, he drew the right conclusion swiftly. "So they're finally dating." Naruto sighed in relief at seeing his sensei. Kakashi was feeling a lot better after his talk with the genin 2 days prior. He was at the theater to see the adaptation of his favorite novel. A sinister yet amusing plan came to his mind as he bought 3 tickets. Walking forwards, he grabbed his students, dragging them into the screening room against their will. Naruto's eyes widened as he began to curse his luck and dread meeting the masked pervert. The 2 young shinobi were seated in front of Kakashi. The masked Junin had a smirk across his face as he saw the uncomfortable couple. Naruto, who was now sweating profusely, took a glance at Sakura to his right. Noticing her abnormal demeanor, he sighed, knowing she wouldn't punch him anytime soon. Standing from his seat in order to leave, he was stopped as Kakashi had a hand on his shoulder and made him sit back down. "What's the rush, Naruto? The movie hasn't even started yet." Sakura fidgeted uneasily as the movie began to start. Her anger for Naruto was now displaced and she was more focused on the fact that she was about to watch a perverted movie. "Shanaro, I will have my revenge, Kakashi-sensei." She blushed uncontrollably as the movie got underway. The intimate scenes were making her extremely uncomfortable as she kept having flashes of Naruto through her mind in intriguing positions, to say the least. He knew of the perverted nature of Jiraiya's novels and had even read some of them. However, reading the erotic scenes and experiencing them being performed, whilst you were with a girl you were highly attracted to, were very different situations. Trying to flush away the impure thoughts of Sakura rushing through his mind constantly, he headbutted the seat in front of him. Kakashi was trying to refrain himself from laughing as he concentrated more on the actions of the young shinobi couple rather than the mature movie he initially came to view. He was enjoying the humorous display and was beginning to wonder whether this was becoming too much for them as he saw Naruto headbutt the seat in front of him hardly. They were old enough to understand about the intimate moments between a man and a woman, however he knew that they weren't expecting to see such scenes their first date. Sakura, beginning to lose herself to her implicit thoughts, rose from her position and grabbed Naruto, running out of the theater. Kakashi merely looked at the 2 leave, not trying to stop them, deciding that they had endured enough. He smiled, hoping they wouldn't refrain from anything before continuing to watch the Ica Paradise movie that was halfway through its course. Sakura and Naruto had finally left the theater and the kunoichi let go of the Kyubi container's hand as quickly as possible. Her thoughts were racing and she sighed out of relief, being free from the perverted torture that was Ica Paradise. Naruto and looked at Sakura but quickly turned away as more impure thoughts corrupted his mind. Coughing rather loudly, he addressed the gorgeous yet scary 16-year-old. "We should be on our way." Sakura nodded and walked beside Naruto as they traveled through one of Konoha's stunning parks. Coming close to a small lake, Naruto took a seat on the soft grass below. Tsunade's apprentice sat down next to him, enjoying the view of the majestic river sparkling in front of their eyes. The stars had at last come out, glittering as vibrantly as ever, adding to the already romantic and peaceful atmosphere. Naruto had a heart-warming smile across his face and a feeling of tranquility within himself. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Sakura was amazed at where Naruto had led them. Due to the genin's usual hyperactive behavior and loudness, she never knew that he enjoyed such serene things. Smiling softly, she scooted closer to Naruto and placed her head on his shoulder before replying, "Yeah." Naruto was taken aback by the suddenness of Sakura's action and knew that he had to be careful as to not let anything happen. A few minutes passed as a smile graced his whiskered face. "I've never seen you so calm before. You're normally always different." Sakura lifted her head from his shoulder. "Barker, don't you like me when I'm like this?" Naruto stood up, walking closer towards the water. Looking over the calm water, he answered, "I like you however you are." Sakura smiled as she heard his words, a comforting feeling entering her stomach. Kicking off his sandals, Naruto walked onto the lake, keeping himself afloat with his chakra. A soothing feeling entered his body as the initial chilliness left upon his bare feet touching the water. He walked forwards as the water underneath him swayed. The Kaneki gazed at Naruto, who seemed so peaceful yet so sad in his movements. She was broken from her thoughts as the Uzumaki spoke, "Try it, Sakura." Rising from her location on the ground, she walked towards the water and took off her own sandals. She placed her foot onto the water as an icy feeling entered her body, making her shiver. Naruto chuckled as he saw her. Sakura walked forward, trying to get accustomed to the coldness. Walking a few more steps, she realized that it was pleasant to walk on the water as her skin enjoyed the sensation. She made her way over to where Naruto was standing. The blonde had managed to make it into the middle of the lake and was standing calmly as he stared at the sky above. Sakura jumped back as she felt something wriggle underneath her feet. What was that? Naruto, diverting his attention to his date, laughed as he saw her jump back with her eyes racing at the water below. Sakura glared at Naruto. "Barker. What's so funny?" "Nothing to worry about, it was probably just a fish." Sakura, embarrassed from her over-weariness, quickly reddened. "Oh." Walking towards the hyperactive ninja, she stood in front of him before he suddenly fell through into the water. Losing sight of his figure, a worried expression appeared across her pretty face. "Naruto." She bent down before looking more clearly into the water. "Naruto, are you all right?" The desperation was evident in her voice as she attempted to locate the Jinchuriki. Being too immersed in the situation, she failed to recognize a set of hands slowly appear from the water below and wrap themselves around her ankles. Sakura snapped out of her search as she felt something clasp her ankles, however she was too late to act as she was pulled into the water below. The water completely submerged her body, sending an overwhelming cold shudder throughout her. She quickly rose from the water and began to shiver. Her hair was drenched as were her clothes. Droplets of water surrounded her face. However, she instantly became angry as she realized what had just happened. "Naruto. I'm going to beat you senseless." "Really?" The kunoichi turned around to face the blonde, who was equally soaked with water. His golden hair was flattened from its drenched state and his clothes were dripping. He laughed. "Come on, it's not that bad, is it?" Sakura gazed at the genin as he walked away from her. The water felt a lot colder as she was left in shock. The stars shimmered less and the lake appeared dark. A tear escaped her green eye, falling into the water below with a resonating sound as her heart shattered on the inside. Sighing, Naruto stared at the seal in front of him. Trying to think of what he was doing wrong, he couldn't find a reasonable solution. He had completed the 3rd week of his training and was sitting in his training ground attempting to understand how he could perform the Hiraishin no Jutsu, as he had been unsuccessful throughout the week. Practicing the technique for the whole week had not gotten him further than he was when he started. At the moment he wasn't using the special kunai, since he decided that he would have to, first, be able to perform the technique whilst the seal was stationary. He had pinned a seal on one of the many trees and had attempted to summon himself to the seal. However, the simple sounding process was a lot more complicated than he initially thought. Fortunately, his training as a whole was progressing well. He had now finished learning all the techniques within the Futon scroll and was close to completing the Doton and Suton scrolls. His development with the Raiten and Kaiten techniques had been steadily improving once he figured out how to manipulate the two elements. He was sure that he would finish learning all the techniques inscribed within the scrolls over the next week. He fell back from his seated position so that he was lying down on the grass. Staring at the clear blue sky, he felt some comfort enter him, which was infrequent since his date. The sound of the waterfall was soothing to his ears as he closed his eyes to relax. Over the past few days, his concentration had dwindled since he found himself constantly being drawn to his thoughts of Sakura. He had not been in contact with the medic nin since the date, afraid of meeting her. He believed it was better to avoid her for the time being since he had already hurt her, however he was hoping that she wasn't too angry with him. Brushing away the painful thoughts, his mind focused on the significance of this day. It had been 16 years ago today that the Kyuubi had attacked Konoha and ended up sealed within him. The anniversary of Kyuubi's defeat had always reminded him of his loneliness, and the reason why once he was told of the demon fox being inside him. Usually he would draw determination from this occasion, strengthening his resolve to become Hokage. He inwardly smiled dejectedly at the fact he didn't know what to think, as he wasn't definitely going to become the leader of Konoha now. He was interrupted from his thoughts as he felt a familiar presence land a few feet away from him. A smile graced his visage as he opened his eyes to see a figure looming over him. After I'm out there working hard in order to find out about Akatsuki, I come back to see you lying around, doing nothing. The large white-haired man sat down next to the Jinchuriki. Naruto rose to a seated position and brushed away the grass from the back of his blonde hair. The seal's not activated. Jiraiya nodded, understanding that he was taking his required rest from the seal training. That means you've been capable of having the seal activated over the past 2 weeks while I've been gone. Naruto laughed proudly. Yeah, it hasn't been that hard. He ended by folding his arms and a smile across his whiskered face. The perverted hermit turned to his student before him across the back of his head. Don't become overconfident, Gaki. It's most likely due to the Kyuubi's healing abilities that you're not as fatigued as a normal person would be. The leaf nin rubbed the now sore spot on his head before replying, there's no need to me over it, Ero Senin. Jiraiya shook his head. Here I was hoping you would have developed some respect while I was gone. He sighed over dramatically, guess I was wishing for too much. Naruto laughed as they proceeded to sit in silence enjoying the bright day with the sun shining spectacularly. So, did you meet with your informant? Jiraiya was sitting cross-legged with his chin resting on his hands. No, but he left me some information. Naruto looked at the legendary Sannin waiting for him to continue, and Jiraiya coughed. Right. Well, from what it seems, all the members of Akatsuki are currently out hunting down the other Bijuas. Since the death of Itachi and Kisame, they have delayed trying to capture you. The blonde absorbed the information. I see. The Ika author continued speaking. Apparently their plan at the moment is to infiltrate Konoha whilst the Chunin exams are occurring. Naruto's eyes widened. Nani. But they're starting next week. Jiraiya shook his head, waving away the Jinchuriki's worry. They will wait until the finals. Infiltrating Konoha at the beginning of the Chunin exams wouldn't be a wise decision on their part, as the shinobi populace isn't as occupied as it would be during the final matches. Naruto, slightly embarrassed from his outburst, reddened a bit. Oh. The frog hermit still had a serious demeanor. Whilst the finals are occurring this time, there will be extra preparations as the Kazekage will be making an appearance alongside the several feudal lords. Naruto nodded in understanding. Gaara. Jiraiya rose and brushed off the dirt from his clothes. I need to see how far you have grown. Next week, it will have been a month since you have undertook this training. As a result, I am going to test your abilities whilst the seal is inactive. Naruto understood his sensei's reasoning. He rose from his position before standing next to his mentor. I'll make sure I'm ready. I plan on beating you. Jiraiya laughed before his face turned solemn. He waited for a few minutes before addressing the younger shinobi to his side. Naruto. Naruto noted his sudden change in mood. Yeah. Jiraiya stood still in an uncomfortable silence before speaking. About that jutsu. The hyperactive ninja removed his jacket slowly prior to showing his left forearm to the older ninja. Jiraiya looked at his defined forearm, but his attention was solely on the complicated pattern that was entrenched upon his skin. Naruto spoke. It's still there. Jiraiya nodded before speaking. Have you talked to Kyuubi about this since you found out about your condition? Naruto put his jacket back on. No, I thought everything was alright since it hasn't disappeared. Now that you mention it, I probably should. Jiraiya looked away from the genin, instead staring at the sun, which was at the highest point in the sky. He sighed before continuing. I know that I can't forbid you from using it now. But try not to utilize it unless you absolutely have to. Naruto noticed the genuine request from the Sannin. I understand, Jiraiya-sensei. The author of the infamous Ika series had a smile on his mature face. Hopefully, after this training, you won't have the need for it. He turned to leave. Guessing from my assessment, you have 5 weeks left until Akatsuki arrives. Even if I'm wrong and they come sooner than expected, we're here to help. The frog hermit made his leave in order to inform the Godime of his discoveries. Naruto stared after his teacher, who had now left the training ground. His eyes held furrowed. This is something that I have to do with my own strength. I can't rely on others, not this time. XXXXXXXXXX. Deodara and Toby was situated in the mountains of the country of lightning, having finally tracked the designated target. The trek to the high peaks of the Lightning Country had gone trouble-free as the blonde Akatsuki member used his capability of flying to transport himself and his partner to encounter the Rokubi. The S-class criminal found himself amidst a thunderstorm as he dodged the lightning bolts shooting from the sky. Looking towards his clumsy partner, he found him confronting the wild Bayu they had to capture. Toby leapt aside as the aggressive Rokubi flew past him in a flash of tremendous power which would have injured him severely. The appearance of the Bayu was intimidating and fit its status as the master of lightning. Its yellow fur stood on end as its 6 tails looked dangerously like thunderbolts. It snarled viciously as it opened its mouth. Deodara observed closely, trying to find a weakness that he could exploit as a sizzling sound protruded from the weasel-like creature's mouth. Toby took a step back as he realized what the 6-tailed demon was about to eat. The orange mask-wearing criminal jumped out of the way as a ball of sparkling lightning impacted on the ground where he was previously standing, resulting in a large explosion. Quickly regaining his fighting stance, he looked at the Rokubi, which had once again begun to charge its deadly maneuver. Deciding against attacking him head-on, the black-haired man ran across the rugged terrain as consecutive attacks were shot at him. Looking towards his comrade, who was busy avoiding various lightning bolts from the sky, he screamed, "Why won't you help me?" Deodara heard the newest member of their organization's plea of help. Turning around in the air on his transport, he rushed towards the Rokubi, which was obsessed with attacking Toby. Quickly forming one of his explosive artworks, he pushed some chakra into it, adding to its destructive nature before launching it at the preoccupied Bayu. It connected as the formidable creature wailed in pain. "The most powerful force is art, yeah." The Akatsuki members prepared to capture the Rokubi as they launched their final attack. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto passed through the streets of Konoha deeply engaged in his thoughts whilst holding both his hands behind his head. He recognized the mournful atmosphere as people were obviously remembering the fateful day from 16 years ago. "Oi, Naruto." The leaf nin snapped out of his thoughts as he turned to face the direction from which he heard his name being called. Iruka-sensei. His eyes widened as he saw the Chunin run up to him before stopping a few feet away from him. The academy teacher looked at the younger ninja. "I've been looking for you all day. Where have you been?" "In Konoha." His simple response didn't satisfy Iruka's question. "Barker, that's not what I meant." He crossed his arms across his chest. "Anyways, come on, I'll treat you to some ramen." Naruto instantly smiled upon hearing of ramen. Hey, don't complain when I eat too much." Iruka laughed at the genin. "Of course not. This is a special occasion." Naruto's face displayed his curiosity as well as his confusion at the older man's statement. "It is." Iruka grabbed the boy in a headlock before ruffling his hair. Don't tell me you don't know. Barker, you turned 16 today." He let go of the younger boy. Naruto straightened with a large smile plastered across his whiskered face as well as a sense of gratification towards the academy teacher. He was happy that Iruka had remembered such an occasion and decided to treat him even though his parents had died in the Kyuubi attack. Naruto looked up to Iruka as a father since he had been the only person apart from the Hokage to truly understand him when he was alone during his childhood. He owed the academy teacher a lot more than the older man knew due to the fact that he had ultimately been the main factor in stopping Naruto from breaking. Being with him made him forget his recent troubles as he began to appreciate the company. "Arigato, Iruka-sensei, but you don't have to do this." Iruka looked towards the younger boy whom he considered as the only family he had left. He laughed embarrassedly at the unusual characteristics the blonde was displaying. Rubbing his scarred nose he spoke, "Don't worry about it, I want to. I haven't seen you since you left the hospital. You're hard to find lately." Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. "Well, I've been busy." Iruka grinned mischievously. "I know." Naruto turned to the Chunin with a puzzled face. "I heard about the dance. Looks like she's finally recognizing you, eh?" He asked the Jinchuriki's back in a friendly manner. Naruto grimaced upon being reminded, as his mind instantly reverted to thoughts of the pink-haired girl and his last encounter with her. "Yeah, she is." Iruka raised an eyebrow as he noticed the solemn mood of the Uzumaki, which he found abnormal since he thought that he would be jumping for joy. Deciding not to pry any further, he walked in silence until reaching Ichiraku's ramen. During Naruto's spree of eating, his demeanor returned to normal as he talked with the academy teacher. They caught up with each other as Naruto remained careful of not revealing too many details of what he was doing. Iruka stood in shock as he nearly emptied his wallet of its contents when the time to pay came. Leaving the ramen stand, the two shinobi walked towards the Hokage monument. I told you not to be upset if I eat too much. Naruto laughed as he spoke. Iruka merely spoke in dignified tone. You said not to complain. You didn't say anything about me being upset. Naruto laughed harder at the Chunin's brooding as he enjoyed himself to an extent which was very rare as of late. Iruka snorted. Seriously, Naruto, 20 bowls of ramen in one sitting. I've never seen you eat that much. Naruto spoke proudly as he wore his trademark foxy grin. Gomen, Iruka-sensei. But I think I've set a new record. Iruka waved off the genin's pride in himself as they arrived at the bottom of the Hokage monument. Naruto looked at the stairs which led to the top of large monument. How about a race? Iruka wore a confident smirk. You may be stronger than me, Naruto, but I've been practicing quite hard lately. Don't be surprised if I beat you in speed. Naruto inwardly scoffed since he knew that his current speed was tremendous due to his SEAL training. Deciding he would take it easy, he replied to Iruka, whatever. First one to the top is the winner. Both ninjas began to run up the long staircase as they tried to run past each other. Naruto smirked before jumping off the staircase and onto the side of the mountain before proceeding to run upwards whilst holding his grip with chakra. Iruka, shocked by his actions, quickly shouted, Oi! Naruto! His forehead at being tricked so easily. The scarred man jumped onto the side of the mountain following suit. Naruto merely laughed as he reached the top, leaving Iruka glaring behind him. A few seconds later, Iruka reached the top, staring daggers into the Leaf Nin. Naruto wore a victorious smirk. Well, I guess your training didn't help that much. He rubbed his nose. Iruka took a seat on the ground, muttering, Barker. You cheated. Naruto walked towards the edge of the mountain, looking over the astounding village of Konoha. Silence consumed the two as the blonde continued looking over the village, captivated by the amazing sight before him. The large sun in the distance was easy to the eye as the sky was tinged with red. He stared at the setting ball of fire as a flock of birds flew overhead. Their whistling was calm as he enjoyed the undisturbed ambience of the environment. Iruka broke the silence in a composed voice. It's been a while since we came up here. Naruto nodded. I can still remember Oji-san's funeral so clearly. Iruka knew that he was talking about the late Sandaime. That day it rained so much, I thought the sky was crying. He closed his eyes as images of the deceased protector of Konoha came to his mind. I felt like that on the inside, my heart hurt like never before. He kept his eyes closed as he reminisced. A ninja mustn't show his emotions in any situation. A ninja must prioritize his mission first and must not show any tears. He tried his hardest to stop his voice from breaking or failing him. Those teachings don't take away the pain a person feels. Iruka was surprised with the usually optimistic and cheerful genin act so remorseful and concerted. He felt a jolt inside him, warning him of something terrible. Naruto continued, Do you remember what I asked you that day? Iruka replied, still curious as to why the younger ninja was talking about such things. Hi, you asked why people risk their lives for others. The scarred male listened attentively as his heart panged for an unknown reason. Naruto opened his eyes, admiring the peaceful view. When one person he disappears, his heart throbbed with pain as he said this, along with his past, current lifestyle and his future. Iruka rose from his position as he heard the young ninja utter those words. His heartbeat increased rapidly as he began to dread what he was going to ask next. Why? What are you trying to say? He stared at the blonde's back, waiting for a reply as his throat began to dry. Answer me, Naruto. The Kyuubi vessel turned to face the man he considered a father, the tears showing in his clear sapphire eyes. The eyes that were normally vibrant and full of life answered Iruka's question, however he still held hope that his dire assumption was wrong. Naruto spoke, ignoring his itching tea as he stood facing one of the most precious people alive to him. Will you forget me, Iruka-sensei? The last threads of hope that Iruka held broke as he heard the genin ask him that question. He felt a great deal of pain entering his heart and hurting him. His eyes began to water as the tears trickled down his face. He found himself incapable of speaking as his throat blocked his voice from coming out. Walking forwards, he pulled the boy into a hug tightly. Trying his hardest to speak, he managed in a broken voice, Why, Naruto? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Naruto let a few tears escape his eyes as he responded, the worst feeling is when you hurt those dear to you. Iruka felt his heart being torn to shreds as his tears fell onto the younger ninja's shoulders. I would never forget the boy, who is like my son. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.